This is what took place. A bachelor's degree at minimum. And believe me, this will be significant in the future. On the walls of their offices, the majority of my colleagues display their degrees, and some even have photos of themselves during graduation. As an interesting side note, I believe I'm the only one that doesn't. I would want to use photos of my wife and I on our travels to adorn my walls. I'm not a big fan of ceremonies, so I didn't even go to my college graduation. Honestly, I've never been upset by the fact that I don't have any cap and gown photos. A coworker, whom we will refer to as John for the purposes of this narrative, has recently begun to get this position. I essentially disregarded the claim since it was so baseless, yet doing so simply served to strengthen his conviction. Without performing any actual work, he began to say stupid things like, "Oh, it must be nice to have gotten this job. Oh, I wish I hadn't had student debts when I applied for this position. You would have understood if you had attended college like the rest of us." I really tried to ignore him now, figuring he was definitely just trying to cause some sort of drama, but I could feel our other coworkers starting to suspect that John could be correct, especially since I was not disputing it. I thought I would simply bring my dumb degree in and end this whole situation, so I decided to become petty. The problem is that I performed so well in school that my diploma proudly states that I graduated with first-class honors. And since it didn't seem that essential, I've never brought this up to anybody at work. What matters most is the degree itself. I became kind of a hot shot of the workplace that day, which was pretty strange, since my coworkers were extremely focused on the first-class honors thing when I brought in my diploma. Because it looked good for the firm, my boss demanded that I put it on my wall. My colleagues then started making fun of John for the entire situation, pointing out that his degree makes no mention of honors, and that it was a foolish claim to make in the first place. Now that I've made him seem terrible with the honors issue, John is upset at me and calling me a jerk. He also claims that I could have found another method to establish my graduation without bringing in my degree. So really, am I the jerk for showing my certificate at work to shut John down and verify that I graduated? Because I'm not really sure what to do at the moment. Let me start by saying that you are not the jerk in this scenario. John is a complete oddball, and he quickly took back what he had said. And to be honest, he deserves this very much. He actually made an effort to harass you at work by saying things like, "Oh, you don't really have a college degree, labor." I mean, what are you talking about, dude? To begin with, you have nothing at all to prove to this man. This individual attempted to confront you by saying, "Wow, you don't have a degree, you lied on your resume," even though you are aware that you have. That isn't even funny, it's so repulsive and unprofessional. The fact that you displayed your diploma after bringing it in and saying, "Look, I have it with first-class honors," that, in my opinion, is the finest form of retaliation you could have hoped for, even if you didn't plan to do it. John is attempting to spew it out now, saying things like, "Wow, you made me look bad. You could have shown me that you had a degree without making me look bad." This ultimately boils down to the fact that you not only demonstrate that you have a diploma, but also that you performed better academically than he did, since he did not receive first-class honors on his graduation. This only confirms, if nothing more, that John spoke a remark that is completely unrelated to you. John is deserving of all the criticism he is receiving from his colleagues, given that his actions against you amounted to outright bullying at work, and that you put an end to him in the manner that you did. Even if you didn't want to, this may have happened. When I try to back out of a parking lot, an entitled guy practically stops me by standing there talking on his phone with his car door open. I thus made the selfish decision to blow my horn as long as I could, until this guy eventually moved out of my path. This is what took place. A tiny retail center's subterranean parking structure. On my left, I parked nose in close to a big pole, and as I moved into the middle, I saw an empty spot next to me. Now, a man had parked next to me, and reversed into the space as I got back to my car with a full shopping cart trolley. He was standing between my car and his driver's door open, and his door was nearly touching my driver's door, all while using his phone. I nodded to greet him, then unpacked the items from the trunk and went back to my cart. I thought he would understand that I needed to go, so when I got back to my car, I said, "Pardon me, please," even though he was still on his phone and giving me the worst sideways stink look. He did move a little and shut his door to let me get into my car. However, he opens his door once more as soon as I enter. My wing mirror would have struck his door if I had reversed, and the pole prevents me from swinging my car in the opposite direction. I politely ask him as I lower my window, "Excuse me, could you just shut your door so I can get out?" Then this guy gives me a sneer, makes a waiting gesture with his finger, and walks away. I decide to lock the doors, close my window, give him a direct stare, and place my hand on the horn. He appeared to be about to go insane as he spun about. Keep in mind that my hand is on the horn, and he is still on his phone. My hand remains on the horn while he gives me an even more intense gaze. I just I keep staring at him while raising my eyebrows. At last, he slams his vehicle door and climbs in. I remove my hand from the horn, give him a kind smile and mouth the words "thank you" before reversing my car and leaving. So, was I being petty here? Indeed. Did it feel wonderful, though? Yes, that was a very wonderful feeling. People who act like this, saying things like, "Oh yeah, my phone call is way more important than you are," very annoying. For example, it's clear to this person that you want to get out and go home. However, he wants to appear like a big hot shot and say no, you can wait, while he simply remains there and physically prevents you from going. Sincerely, I believe that the only option accessible to you was what you did. You couldn't go since this person wasn't listening. And since this person deserved it so badly, I think it's fantastic that you went ahead and blasted the horn at him. Am I the jerk for not letting my girlfriend change seats on a plane? Because she is still angry with me right now, and I am at a loss on what to do. This is what took place. My girlfriend, who we'll refer to as Julie for the purposes of this narrative, and I went on a weekend vacation this past weekend. Name. Due to financial constraints, we both purchased basic economy tickets and sat in the seats that were allotted to us. It was rather clear that one seat was far better than the other as we boarded the aircraft, even though they were both middle seats, as was to be expected. Julie was seated across from a woman who was not as large but was still rather large, and between a man who was so fat that he was obtruding into her seat. However, I was seated next to two people of average size. The problem is that I'm rather large. I have wide shoulders, weigh 220 pounds, and am 6'. Julie is no longer little. Despite being 5'8" and 165 pounds, she is plainly a lot smaller than I am. Julie asked right away if we could move seats, and I declined. I was aware that Julie would find the seats uncomfortable. I doubt I could even squeeze in between the people on each side of her. Julie groaned and simply returned to her seat after a little back and forth. Julie was rather chilly to me when we landed, but I didn't think it was a huge thing at the time. She stated she needed to lie down since her back hurt from the travel, so I offered to buy us dinner on the way out. I could tell she was angry about the sitting arrangement, so I told her that it wasn't a huge concern because it was just a 2-hour trip and that she was smaller than me, so it was better for her than for me. She instructed me to just drive her home and drop it. Julie had originally intended to join me that evening when I went out with some of our common friends, but she decided not to. When they inquired about Julie's whereabouts, I said that she was angry with me. When I explained why, most of them felt that it was gallant of me to move seats with her, but others thought Julie was exaggerating. They said it was about me defending my girlfriend, not about who was bigger. At this moment, I feel like I should be apologizing because I feel like a jerk. Was it my fault, therefore, that Julie and I didn't move seats? I truly don't know what to do at the moment. Well, I don't believe you're the jerk for maintaining the designated seat, but I do think it's extremely unacceptable the way you handled this, and the way you completely disregard Julie's sentiments. You're the jerk for that portion, for sure. You essentially replied, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things," rather than listening to her, saying, "Hey, I'm really sorry for taking that seat, and I understand why you're upset, or at the very least, hey, I'm sorry, simply relax." There was really no justification for the 2-hour trip, and it simply made things worse, in my perspective. It's like you're just fueling the flames, buddy. Therefore, no, I don't think you're a jerk for holding onto your seats, but I do believe you need to have handled the matter much more skillfully. The entire family is furious with me right now, and I'm at a loss for what to do. Am I the jerk for attending my cousin's wedding just to discover that I wasn't invited specifically? This is what took place. Alright, so this weekend was my cousin's wedding, and I'm an 18-year-old girl. I'll refer to her as Mary for the purposes of this article. Although my siblings and I were rather close growing up since we frequently visited Mary's house, we haven't seen each other much recently because they all moved away for college, but it is still pleasant to see each other during family gatherings. She met her current spouse a year and a half ago, and ever then, he has been welcomed to all of the family's gatherings, including Christmas and Easter. Mary was much more aloof than normal while he was there, and she spoke to my siblings all night long instead of me. And I simply assumed that it may be due to the age gap between us. For comparison, my siblings are 20 and 23 years old. I am 18, and she is 22. After a few weeks and months, we received a wedding invitation in the mail. At least my folks did, anyhow. The invitation was written to my family's name and did not contain my name, but since I live with my parents and my brother and sister received one, I believe that my parents were also invited. When Mary saw me, her expression fell. She forced a grin, but I could see she was uncomfortable. The wedding proceeded, but during the cocktail party, Mary approached me and questioned why I had come because she hadn't sent me an invitation. I was a little surprised by her response. However, we informed her that we thought I was invited and questioned her about why. After avoiding the topic for a while, she finally told me that she didn't want her husband's family to know about her cousins, and that she wanted them to have a positive view of her family. To put things in perspective, her husband and his family are much more conventional and conservative, while our family is generally accepting and open-minded. I don't get that they wouldn't have known until someone informed them, and I don't appear to be homosexual, whatever that implies. I was astonished when she stated this. She cared more about impressing a group of jerks than her own cousin, and I informed her that she was tired of it. After that, she lost her temper, and we both became a little rowdy, which did draw some notice. My parents told me that I shouldn't have made a big deal out of it when people arrived to see what was going on. But many others argued that I was wrong to come when I wasn't invited. I simply walked off when Mary began ordering me to leave. She and her parents have been texting me ever since, accusing me of being a jerk for coming there, causing a scene and spoiling her special day. Although I am aware that she is free to invite anybody she wants to her wedding, her remarks were quite painful. And I honestly believed that I had been invited. Perhaps I should have just left without saying anything, but I know it's awful that I made such a spectacle on her wedding day. Then, am I to blame for this? What ought I to do? No. This appears to be an honest error, thus I don't believe you are at all at fault. You didn't know you weren't invited, did you? You came because you thought of Mary as family. It is clear that you have a long history with her, so it is surprising that she would say, "I want everyone here except the lesbian." That is completely inappropriate, and it is just ridiculous. The second problem, though, is that I'm kind of thinking, and I don't have any proof that Mary isn't inviting you because her family doesn't like gay people, but rather because she herself doesn't like gay people. As you stated, unless someone informed them in some way, they will never be aware that you are a lesbian. However, she refused to defend you and at least say, "Oh, this is my cousin, so this isn't a problem." That is really poisonous, and it makes me think that she is the one who finds it offensive that you are a lesbian. As a cop-out, and if that's the case, I would leave and never return. But you know what? I don't think you're at fault here because she came to you and made a big deal out of it. She said that. Well, this is the reason why you don't want me here. So when you try to figure out why, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Mary is definitely the one with a problem, and if she didn't want to invite you, she should have told you like an adult, rather than simply assuming you wouldn't be there. That is incredibly immature, and you don't deserve that at all. At any given time, my entitled roommate insists that I turn off the heat. And even though the nighttime temps have been close to freezing, this gentleman insists that I keep it off so he can save a good amount of money, in order to nefariously comply. I purchased a heater that I use in my room literally around the clock, which has cost this guy hundreds of dollars on my electricity account. Yet I must admit that I've never felt better about exacting revenge on my roommate. This is what took place. Alright, so the most annoying people on the earth are my housemates. I could write for hours on all the petty and outright hostile things they have done, but I will keep it brief for the purposes of this piece. For no apparent reason, they both get so worked up over these dumb things. One of them will genuinely yell and threaten to strike you if you leave drawers and cupboards open, even by something like half an inch. The other one is the door, the lights that are on for about a half second, and the dripping faucet that he believes everyone is doing on purpose. The fact that the heater is on at all is one of the most recent things he has chosen to be petty about. To put that in perspective, the house is 2 stories. Me and roommate 2 sleep upstairs, while roommate 1 sleeps downstairs, and my insulation is really bad. On the other hand, he has excellent insulation and is located on the south side. In any case, it doesn't excuse his behavior because he already manages another rental property and is aware that maintaining the temperature at 60 degrees is required by law. With the exception of when they sleep, they are downstairs 90% of the time, and I spend 99% of my time upstairs since I detest interacting with them. Every few hours during the day, he walks upstairs to check the thermostat. If it's anything other than off, he immediately approaches me and tells me to quit tinkering with the heat. And it was around 35 last night, by the way. Because I don't want the pipes in my room to freeze, and because I had mice, which actually die if exposed to temperatures below 60 degrees, I had set the heat up to only 60 degrees. He switched it completely off as soon as he got upstairs and entered my room to sulk at me while I was asleep. When I finally woke up at 1 in the morning, my dog was complaining and my room was 38 degrees. Following that, I immediately went out and purchased a 1500-watt convention heater, along with a 20-watt heating pad for the device, which I used almost constantly. He also covers the majority of the electricity bill, so if he wants to dominate the thermostat to the point where it's illegal and may damage the house's pipes, he should have no trouble shelling out an additional $200 each month to heat my room. Yes, that room is strange. Just let folks turn on the heat, please. Man, it's freezing outdoors. You even own pets, for example. Animals require heat of some type to survive, else they would die. And he wants to sit there and tell people not to put on the heat. What's the matter with you? It's like, oh buddy, I don't know, idiot. Perhaps my room is really cold. I enjoy how this person tries to be critical and say, don't use the heat. Put an end to it. You'd better not. That's simply so strange and insane. Furthermore, he is only acting in this way out of self-interest. In order to avoid paying for it, he wishes to turn off the heat. That is completely unacceptable. Perhaps it's time to give the landlord a call and tell them that this is really unfair since what you're going through seems so unpleasant and uncomfortable, and I don't believe you should have to deal with it at all. Is my dad's decision to steal and waste my inheritance money the reason my grandparents stopped supporting him? Am I the jerk? This is what took place. Alright, I'm a 16-year-old boy whose mother died when I was 7 years old. My dad was given responsibility for the inheritance she left me. It was rather specific. The money was to be spent for my future, and no one was to touch it until I truly needed it. I mean, when everything went down 5 months ago, I even read it. When I was 10 years old, my dad remarried. He now has a 4-year-old daughter with his wife, Louise, and an 8-year-old stepdaughter. At the age of 2, my half-sister received a rare illness diagnosis. They struggled to identify the problem, even though it was always obvious that something was off. She would be all right as she grew older, according to the physicians. Although she is unlikely to die from this ailment because it is not life-threatening, it might seriously impair her and leave her permanently crippled. They discovered that getting therapy for this was difficult, but it was costly. Although it takes a lot longer, there were and are methods to seek assistance with paying for it. Therefore, my dad made the decision to pay for it out of the fortune my mother left me. He made an attempt to inquire, but he was determined to go anyhow, and he informed me of this when I declined. Then he humiliated me for declining, for prioritizing my sister's health over education. Although Louise was present in the room with us, she was silent prior to my refusal, which likely made me feel guilty since they had to take action, but I was over here refusing. After reading my mother's will, which my grandparents fortunately had a copy of, I informed my dad that I would never forgive him if he stole the money. I also mentioned that the money could only be used for my necessities. He went on to tell me that his mother had passed away and that he hoped she would comprehend, but I assured him that I would never do so. He went on to say that I would understand when I was older, but I told him that I detested him and that Louise should never talk to me ever again because I thought it was disgusting that he insisted that she would promote the theft of my mother's money and my own. I then explained what my dad had done to my grandparents. Although they are my mom's parents, they have maintained a cordial relationship with Dad and occasionally offered assistance. They often shared things with him, and my grandfather would check out Dad's automobile for free if there was a problem. When I told them, all of that stopped, and until he questioned them about it this week, Dad was unable to determine why. They said he had the audacity to steal from me, spend their daughter's money on his child, and then do it to himself. Didn't comprehend or agree with his choice. After that, he came up to me and bemoaned what I had done, but I simply smiled and reminded him that I had warned him that I would never forgive him. He went on to question how I become so callous and self-centered, but I informed him that I would never forgive him for what he had done. So really, am I to blame for this? Because I'm still so angry right now. No, I don't believe you are at all to blame for this. This man really stole your money and handed it to someone else. Indeed, I am aware of how awful things are and how you're trying to work things out. For a potentially ineffective therapy, he has practically ruined your college career. And sure, I certainly feel sorry for this stepchild, no matter what. For example, this is unfair to them and not enjoyable. However, what truly makes my hair stand on end is the fact that he took your money rather than using his own. Like I don't give a damn about the situation. Since that money isn't really yours to take, you don't touch it. In all honesty, your dad shouldn't have done this in the first place if he is upset with your grandparents knowing about it. Over the fact that she was attempting to follow me and ask me a question when I was wearing AirPods. And I sincerely hope I never have to deal with Karen again because I'm still really irritated by this. This is what took place. I reside in a condominium community that is infamously hard to get about. Additionally, I do occasionally run across folks asking for directions because I walk outside to smoke every hour. I'm wearing my AirPods today. I was strolling 2 blocks to my normal location, minding my own thing, when I felt a forceful tap on my shoulder. When I turn around, an older, arrogant Karen is staring at me. Then, when I pull out one of my AirPods, expecting her to say anything, she gives me this oversized shrug, as though I somehow know what she wants. Even though I occasionally find it difficult to be approachable, I try to assume the best and ask her if there is anything I can do to assist. The whole time I was walking, they were yelling after me. Even though I was already a little annoyed, I show her the second AirPod and explain that I was unable to hear her since I had them in my ears. Instead of attending to her needs, she now stutters a little and accuses me of being impolite. I calmly put my headphones back in, take out my phone, and stand there smoking as if she doesn't exist at this point, instead of questioning her if she even understands what that phrase means. At last, she asks me the location of a building, but guess what? I choose to ignore her. She starts shouting "pardon me" right away, and she keeps saying it louder and louder. I stare up at her blankly, as though I'm seeing her for the first time, and then she yells as loudly as she can "pardon me," but this time her face is filled with genuine rage. I shrug casually and gesture to my headphones, saying, "Sorry, I can't hear you, and there's nothing you can do about it." I simply return to my phone right away. After that, since there isn't any music playing right now, I can hear everything Karen says. "You are utterly terribly rude," she tells me. I smugly relish winning this passive-aggressive struggle, and she continues to chat to herself. Wow. Some people are so entitled. It's okay to wear AirPods while strolling down the street. That is you simply going about your life as a typical human being. I think it's really strange that she wants to blame you for her confusion. Personally, I think you're doing a great job with this, since it's time to block out those that behave in such a manner. And I think it's amusing that you gave her the quiet treatment, which is what enraged her so much. Remember to click the bell to enable alerts when you subscribe.